Lance Hall here for Let's Discuss with Lance Hall. Very happy and honored to have John Waite on the program today. How you doing, John?
I'm pretty good, thanks very much. I'm hanging in there. I've had like 4 cups of coffee and I'm on my second glass of water, and I'm just about awake. Yeah,
I was going
I
to
was in
say
the
you're out.
studio. I was in the studio yesterday, so it was kind of like I've been in the studio all week, and we leave for the road on Friday. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, you're on the West Coast. I'm on East Coast. It's a little later in the day for me out here,
Yeah, I
but
wish I was there. Yeah,
we're here to talk about a lot of things. But we'll start with your newest release, the Wooden Heart Acoustic Anthology,
yeah,
volumes 1 through 3. 1 through 3. Say that fast 3 times.
yeah.
And just a masterful work, John. I listened to it. Um, it's so there's such a primitiveness and an authenticity to it. I compared it as I was listening to like those original Robert Johnson recordings, when they
Oh,
came out,
wow.
you know. I mean, obviously there's not the virtuoso blues guitar, but I think I'm going for the authenticity. I could hear you like he was, in a hotel room, sitting in a chair with an acoustic and a mic, you know, just doing those songs.
Well, the idea was to just go at them without any kind of um, embellishment, just to have the guitar and the vocal. But there's more to it in a lot of ways. There's the craft of like knowing what you're doing after 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if something wasn't working, we'd start again from the top. I think if Robert Johnson made a mistake on the guitar, you were going to hear it.
Yeah.
But I was going for a rawness. I think in the age of everything being so polished and the performance tends to get cleaned up, and I was looking for that the mistakes maybe more than I was the perfectness of a take.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a lot of the vocals are like first takes. It was something I've wanted to do for a very long time. And if you were interested to know what makes me tick, you'd probably listen to this triple album and an album I made in the 90s called Temple Bar.
Mm.
If you put them both together, you'd have a pretty good picture of me. So it's a labor of love, and it's also pretty selfish. It's something I really did want to take care of.
Sure. Well, there comes a time in your life where you just want to do what you want to do, and you have the ability to do that. So why not?
Yeah, but I've always done what I wanted to do. But I think at this point, I mean, if I was with a major label and I went in an office somewhere and said, listen, I got this idea to make a triple acoustic album,
Yeah.
yeah, they would say no. And then there'd be a big argument. But the great thing about being your own boss and having that kind of, what's the word? There's a word for this, autonomy.
Mm.
Uh, the work gets better once you got that freedom, which I've maintained pretty much throughout my career. I think I've been very unimpressed with record companies' input. I mean, you have to really do what you think is the best thing. Some people are geniuses, like John Hammond back in the 50s and 60s. He discovered Dylan, Aretha Franklin, Bruce Springsteen. There are some A&R guys that are just fantastic.
Mm.
They're born to be in a band or be the guy that's producing. And a lot of the other guys aren't. They're just like wallpaper.
Mm.
But I mean, you have to do what's in your heart. And I think if you don't, it's going to show in the music. And I hope that I kept it pure.
You did. You definitely did. And you kind of ran the gamut of your career, with some baby stuff and your solo
Yeah,
stuff and some
yeah,
covers, which includes the first single where you take on Bob Dylan's Not Dark Yet. You
yeah.
did masterful. Great job.
Well, thank you. I think if you're gonna get in the ring with a song that Dylan wrote, you you have to bring something other than just a love of Dylan. You have to bring something to the song. You can't just like try and sound like Bob or whatever. You really, I mean, I felt that song deeply when I first heard it.
Mm-hmm.
And at this time in my life, uh, there are no risks, you know. You don't take any. The chances, you take chances every time you open your mouth.
Yeah.
But I think time is too valuable to be not in the moment, and to accept the cracks and the creases, and that's what makes something beautiful, interesting, is the fault. If something was perfect, you got arena rock or whatever, but I think if something's perfect, it's something other. And when something's faulted, it can have your heart, you know. It's something that's very true. So I hope I managed in some way to bring something to it. Honestly, I mean, you don't know what you're doing really till you finish, but I think I did a pretty, I mean, I listened to that song probably more than anything off Wooden Heart. I think I like the way it turned out, but whether Bob would agree, I don't know, you know.
As I was listening to it, I had it on as I was kind of researching for this interview, and the one tune that really jumped out to me when I heard it, you know, you hear the song, you think, oh, that's a great song. Oh, I like how he did that.
Yeah.
When this song came out, I like stopped what I was doing and listened. Masterpiece of Loneliness.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Fabulous title. I love the title and the melancholiness to it, and the words and stuff. It was awesome. Like I said, it made me stop my research and just
thank you.
listen.
Thank you.
You know, can you tell us a little bit about that one?
That's probably my favorite song from that period. But yeah, I was in Nashville and I was intrigued. This is like 10 years ago, whatever, but just intrigued by country music. I'd always loved country and folk. They were my roots in England before rock and roll kicked me in the teeth. You know, it was like, but that's where I got my songwriting chops from. And there's another song called Downtown, where a masterpiece of loneliness and downtown are kind of connected in as much as that I let myself look in the mirror and almost be, I was going to say self-pitying, but I mean just admitting to the world and where you've wound up. It's something that you get from Hank Williams, really. You know, he used to say to his wife, "Poor old Hank." He used himself in the first person. Poor Hank. Don't be mean to poor Hank. And I took that. I took that kind of dark picture book kind of cinematic way of writing, which occurs in country probably more than anything else. It's very descriptive writing. A Masterpiece of Loneliness was written about a house that I owned in New York, and coming home down through the woods and the headlights on the road, and turning into the drive and coming up the drive and putting the key in the lock and turning the lock, and the house is empty, you know, and writing about that. And yeah, I think the thing about the paint box, and I like the story in the story. I think I got that right. That's one of the best things I've done. But you know, but thanks for that. I mean, I can't say what's the best stuff I've done. Only you could say that, because you're going to get something out of it, you know.
Exactly. In researching you, I was amazed. Our lives sort of run parallel a little bit. With you growing up over there in Lancaster and England. I want to take you back to the days where you're on the street corner looking in Ken Gardner's shop at that Marty Robbins album, you know?
Yeah. Oh man.
Same thing for me. There was a little store over here on the main street. I came from a small town in Vermont. It was Reno's Appliances. I remember seeing an Elvis album in there, you know, that had me intrigued. Wow. And I live in a little town that's got a river that runs through. We don't quite have the castle and the cobble streets, but there's a river that runs through the town. I lived in the last house, you know, headed out of town.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Amazing stuff. Sounded like you had a great childhood.
Yeah, no, you know, I mean, that's interesting. I think when you were a kid, you're looking for this thing. It's like a lonesome search, you know. You're looking for things to connect to that you understand, and you have an instinct for things, you know. And looking at through that window in Ken Gardner's appliance shop, there's Marty Robbins, Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs. That was my introduction to America and cowboy songs, and the myth of cowboys and Indians and going home and watching the Lone Ranger and all that stuff, and trying to piece together what America actually was. And then hearing Brenda Lee and Jim Reeves and Hank Williams and my cousin Michael playing me all these country greats and listening to folk music, I mean, you're just wide open as a kid. And kids, it's a precious thing, but kids really see what's going on. And when you're growing up, you get your feelings hurt, you feel rejected, you feel loved, you're in love with your first girlfriend or whatever when you're about 6. You have all these, this is an emotional roller coaster, and you forget a lot of it because you're growing up. But the things that you connect with have a profound impact, on the rest of your life. And maybe we're both lucky to have that kind of, to see the magic in something.
Absolutely.
And keep the sense of wonder that you had then, and it comes back to you in your teenage years, and that would be a good childhood,
Fabulous. And you mentioned your cousin Michael, who of course was in Tempered 7.
Yeah, man, you're well researched. Yeah.
I've been waiting for this for a long time.
This is great. Yeah.
Your brother Joe had the first Telecaster in Lancaster.
Yeah.
Your mom played piano, and then again, your Aunt Doris gave you a radiogram with some 45s and 78s, which again,
wow. Yeah, Michael's mum. She my cousin Carol, very beautiful girl, but she actually introduced me to Brenda Lee. And so I would go over there and they'd play these records, Perry Como and all this stuff, Nina and Frederick. And I just, they couldn't get me back in the car. It was like I was with this record player, radiogram. And my wonderful Auntie Doris, I think, talked to Carol and said, should we just give him it? And they said yes. And so we didn't have any money. My mom and dad both worked. We lived in a cottage, and suddenly I got this this radiogram with all these singles. And man, I lived, I mean, that was my life. I just listened to all this music that I'd got. And I owe a great deal to that family, the Deegan family. They really were beautiful people, and they were very kind to me. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And then you started singing around the time your brother had a band called the Wildcats, and when the singer didn't show up, you would jump on the mic and sing.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, fabulous stuff. Yeah, they had rehearsals for the gigs and stuff. And I was too young to go to gigs. I was in short pants, but I could sing, I could really hit all the notes. And I knew Maybelline and Lucille and Walking the Dog and, just all those R&B hits, Chuck Berry, And when, the singer wasn't there or nobody wanted to sing, I'd just jump up and sing one. God bless my brother Joe for letting me do that, I mean, he was pushing for me. I was kind of like just there as a sidekick. I was never formally in the band or anything, but I thought I was, I mean, when they went to play gigs, I couldn't believe they didn't take me with them. But I was only like 8 or something, I was very young. Now, but yeah, the Wildcats, man, I should write about that.
At that point, as far as singing, had you sung in like school or like in church? No, or how did your singing voice come to you?
Just came. The whole family. I mean, I could always sing on tune, on key, and I had a strong little voice. I mean, I could really nail stuff, but I was very shy. It wasn't like one of those things like, let me sing you a song. I was terribly shy. I mean, I was just like, and I was for a lot of my life. It took a lot to get past that. But I remember once my Auntie Doris, here we go again, coming over to my mom's, and we had nothing. We were like, we're living in this cottage facing into the country, and we had a tin bath, and they were both giving me a bath in front of the fire, and then they towel me up, and I was only about 4 or 5. Yeah. And then Auntie Doris said, sing us a song, John. And I love my Auntie Doris, she was lovely, but I had to go in the kitchen, shut the door, and then I'd sing through the crack in the door. I'm sure they got a lot out. I'm sure they thought it was very funny and sweet and all that, but I wanted to sing. I just was very shy. So, I didn't discover singing. It was just part of me, like the fingers on my hands.
That's amazing. You started writing songs, though, and I hope I'm going to pronounce this name right. It was a three-piece band named after a German battleship. Is it Graf Spee? Do I have that right?
Yeah. That was it. We an old friend of mine from art school and a guitar player from Kendall. We got together and we were like a blues rock band. And Chris Phillips was his name. He could sing and play the great guitar. And I'd sing a couple, he'd sing a couple. And we played the local circuit, which wasn't very broad, but we were working like maybe once a week, twice a week. And that's where I cut my teeth, really. Like, climb in the van and go somewhere to play.
Yeah. Then you go off to art school and that's where you sort of really start playing, and you end up in London in a jazz trio called England.
Yeah.
Playing bass. Now, how did bass come along in this? Did you ever take any lessons or anything, or is that just another natural?
No, I think the fact that my brother played guitar and played it so well, I gave up on that. But I always loved bass. I loved oboe, cello, double bass, viola. I loved all the bass lines in classical music. And, the first time I heard the Beatles on a record player, when I finally got a Beatles album, got it for Christmas. And it goes, how could I dance with another? But the bass goes, there's a passing note in there. And McCartney, the rest of the band are in a different world, and McCartney puts this passing note in, and it's the most brilliant moment in bass playing history. Nobody had ever done that before, ever. Never. And McCartney, that shows you how great he was as a young man bass player. But I remember hearing that in the little room. We just moved into a much bigger house with a big garden. My dad was doing really well. Everybody was we bought this massive house and I had my own room. And at Christmas, I got the first 2 Beatles albums. And I was like leaning over this little record player. And I heard that bass, the passing note in the bass, and I just fell in love with the bass guitar. And I actually bought one off my brother's bass player when he moved up to a Fender bass. He sold me his old Hofner. And all I ever thought about was playing bass. The great bass players like Andy Fraser, Jack Bruce, Renus Gerritsen from Golden Earring. He's profoundly gifted bass player. But cello, bass lines in anything always caught my attention. And the singing was secondary to it. I classed myself as a bass player, Okay. And then when the Babies started, they wanted a bass player. Oh, this guitar player with just 2 of us together. I could play bass, write songs, and sing. So I was the group, really. It was, and I never really realized what I had going for me till the manager said, "We need to write some songs here. Can you do something by next Wednesday?" It's like ordering fish and chips. Right. I'll like 2 fish and chips, please. It was like, okay. And I went away and wrote 2 songs, and the next week we're in the studio.
Wow. Yeah. The way the Babies came about was sort of fascinating, because you ended up leaving the band England and going back to Lancaster, going to Cleveland, back to England again, and that's where you met Mike Corby. Yeah,
that was it. I mean, there was a mutual friend that works in a guitar shop called Gordon on Shaftesbury Avenue. We became friends with him, the guys from England. And I stayed in touch with everybody. I'd send postcards back to England, and Gordon sent me a postcard saying, I might be in a band. You might want to come down and have a look at this when you come back. And when I got back to England, we got together, and then this Mike Corby, this guitar player, had a manager called Adrian Miller. And we met for a pint of beer at Sir Richard Steele's pub on Haverstock Hill in Hampstead, and talked a big game. You know, it was like, I can get you a record deal. You know, we need to put this band together. You and Mike, man, you go. And I went away thinking, wow, this guy's either, you know, the real McCoy or he's delusional, you know, but he said a lot of things to me that I wanted to hear, like record deal, success. And obviously, as we've discussed here, I'd really paid a lot of dues by that point.
Sure.
So, you know, you climb on any raft when the boat's sinking. So I thought I'd give it a shot. And over the next 6-8 months, would meet periodically and jam through whatever songs I had. If Mike had an idea, we'd try that. We couldn't find a drummer. We had the drummer from Motorhead come down at one point to help out. It was all kind of, it was like kids talking about what could be, you know. It was like everybody was dreaming and everybody had nothing, but we had guts and we had balls, and we stuck with it. And then we got Tony Brock in on drums, and then we had something. When we went in the studio, and Tony was like, me and Tony had been around the block. Mike hadn't really done much, but we made two demos, and Adrian started taking it around the record companies, and then we found Wally Stocker, the guitar player, and that was like finding gold, really, because Wally liked the same things I did. Cool. Played like he was in Free, and that really helped. That propelled me forward, and we had a band and we had game, you know. Then we filmed it instead of making a demo.
That fascinated me. I read that you guys actually got signed based off of videos of the demos. You guys predated MTV.
I know, yeah. Well, you know, when I was in England, the band, we lived in the Northwest, and we did a gig once at a place called a brewery in Kendal. And the guy that run it had a video camera, and he filmed the band. And we all sat around in the dressing room afterwards, and you're just like, wow, I'm on TV. You know, it was just a spectacular thing. And when we couldn't get signed in London, I piped up and said, like, you know, why don't we film it? And I'm not taking credit for being the first guy. I really am, because anybody with any brands was about to do that. The only people that had video players were the record companies and the TV stations.
Right.
So it was an obvious no-brainer what you could do with it, but nobody had quite done it yet. So we got a guy called Mike Mansfield, who was a big rock show producer, and he filmed it. And we lip synced to the demos with Wally and Tony and Mike. And then Adrian took it around the record companies, and everybody said no. And then somebody said yes. And then they all came back to the table, and we got a pretty good deal, you know?
Awesome. I've got to ask you about one Baby song. This is probably one of my favorite ballads of all time. And I mean, to pick out my favorite Baby song, I mean, oh God, Give Me Your Love, Midnight Rendezvous, you know, all of them.
Thank you.
But this one always, I always go back to this one. I'm Falling, one of my favorite tunes of all time.
Yeah. Well, that's the only song that me and Mike Corby wrote together. And one night we're down in the rehearsal room we had on Tooley Street, right by the Thames, by Tower Bridge and London Bridge. It was very Dickensian, you know, it really was like old London. It's like a Walt Disney cartoon, you know, cobble streets, fog, the pub on the corner. And me and Mike had stayed behind from rehearsal with the idea of writing. And he had this guitar lick that starts the song. And I think I was doubting whether I was going to stay in the relationship I was in. And it was a brilliant song. I think it's one of the best songs the Babies ever did. And it's the only song that me and Mike Corby ever did. I mean, he wasn't really a writer, but I could take odd bits that he had and put them in a song, but he had a hook, you know, on the guitar. And ooh, I'm falling, fading away. Ooh, I'm falling, what more can I say? If I had the time to look hard at you. And it's quite an adult lyric, you know. I mean, it's for a young man, I was only like 22. But I think there was a kind of maturity in the writing that you don't really expect. And it wasn't generic. It wasn't trying to sound like anybody. I could only do one thing, and that's as maybe being a drawback. and probably my best feature, best quality is that I can only be one thing.
Yeah. I've got to ask you about one gig too. I read about this one. You guys played as the Babies. I think it was in Rockford, Illinois. You were sandwiched in between Cheap Trick and AC/DC with Bon
Yeah,
Scott.
I know. It was my
Lord.
birthday. Yeah, it was my birthday, and it was a gigantic festival in Cheap Trick's hometown, and they were headlining, and AC/DC were on the bill. And thinking of Cheap Trick and probably Rick Nielsen, he probably decided to put us on after AC/DC. He was a tricky guy.
Yeah.
And so we're all huge AC/DC fans. We're all listening to Power Ridge.
Yeah.
That was our favorite record, Down Payment Blues, Gone Shooting, all that. And I don't know who else was on the bill, but they came out, and one of them wasn't wearing shoes. They looked like they just got out. I mean, they were drunk. They were like really didn't give a fuck, and they were fantastic. I mean, I think I know that they had a long career with Bon, but that particular period was when they were just rolling through the world. Real rebels, really, but very musical. And Bon was like such a great singer and lyricist, and the whole band. I mean, Jesus, man.
Yeah.
I mean, just like you couldn't. I mean, Keith Richards once said that Power Ridge is one of his favorite rock records, and if Keith Richards can say that about anybody,
Yeah.
But we came on afterwards, and I tell you what, I didn't care. It was like I liked the confrontation. I liked it when it got edgy. It was the time of punk and all that stuff. So I like getting it on with the audience. But there's about 20,000 people there.
Yeah.
And I've got a picture of me wearing a leopard skin pants, white baseball boots from London, and a hot pink T-shirt with "baby" written across it. And I'm baiting the audience,
Yeah.
And it's like, oh God, but we went down really well. But it was like kind of like, I think somebody planned that might not go so good for us, but we were ballsy, we had the songs. We came out when we were touring with Journey, and we'd annihilate the audience. I mean, by the time we walked off, the place was on its feet.
Yeah.
And so I was never afraid to go out there and face any kind of hang on a second. It was. I enjoyed that. It was the time of the Clash.
Yeah.
And I carried that kind of insolence with me. I wasn't afraid of anything.
Yeah. So the shy John Waite that had to sing for his aunt behind a door had long gone by then. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a decision. It was a decision to make. I was a bass player. Mike Colby got fired. He had a meltdown. He was really out of his mind at that point.
Yeah.
And instead of like getting another guitar player that looked like him, and that's what a lot of people showed up for the audition, I said, listen, man, we have to rethink this. Let's come out again as something else. Let's get a couple of guys in. I'll stop playing bass. I'll be a better singer. We need a front man. And I just said, that's the band. And they didn't argue. I think Tony wanted me to stay on the bass, but for several different reasons. But I took to it. We did a few gigs like at the Whiskey A Go Go, and it was like Nerve City. And then about 2 months later, we opened for Alice Cooper, 10,000 people. And I remember I had a red suit on. I had a great tailor back then. Yeah. I had a red suit on. I remember going out in front of 10,000 people with my heart in my mouth. And when we came off, everybody was saying, you did pretty good there, Yeah. And I can't remember anything. Wow. I just wiped it out. I was terrified, but I didn't back down. I knew what my job was, and about 2 months later, I was Elvis. I wasn't taking, I just took it out there and sold it. I really knew what I was doing immediately, really.
Amazing stuff. Do we have more time, John? Was that a call you had to take, or?
No, it's just the studio. We're going back in the studio tomorrow, I think. I can call back. That's fine, thanks. Yeah.
So I sort of wanted to jump ahead. I mean, I could talk to you for an hour, but I don't want to take up that much of your time. Over the course of time, the Babies break up and you go solo. We'll jump ahead to the Missing You No Breaks album. First
Yeah,
thing I got to ask you is Crackerjack Band, Gary Myrick.
yeah.
How'd you end up with him?
I
That guy's
I got off Chrysalis. My manager's lawyers, they managed to get me out of that deal and free. And they walked me into EMI, and EMI were just like thrilled, John Waite, yeah. And
yeah.
I flew to America and signed the contracts. And I met Jim Marza, the guy running the company,
Mm.
and Gary Gersh, the A&R guy. And it was like a bromance, everybody loved everybody. My manager, Stephen Machat, was really funny, very edgy, demanded the best. And they just said, yeah, we love John. Sure. Yeah. What else do you need? And it just went. I mean, I'd gone over there to sign a contract, shake hands, get to know people, set a date to start recording, look for a band. And Gary Gersh, the A&R guy, said, why don't you go and meet Gary Myrick? And I said, who's Gary Myrick? And he said, well, it's this guy from Texas. He's got this band called The Figures, and he's playing in strip clubs, and he's like really popular, and he's happening. And I did. It was like, okay, then, because I got on very well with Gary. He was a great guy. And Gary Gersh. So I met Gary Myrick at a rehearsal studio, and Stan Lynch from Tom Petty came down and played drums. I might have played bass. And we hit it off.
Yeah.
I wandered up to him and said hello. And he said, hello. And he had a brush cut and a big black coat on. And a Texas accent. He says, like, don't worry, it's going to be okay in about 2 minutes. And I thought that was very charming,
Yeah.
And we did. We both painted. We're both into art big time. And he was a friendly, nice guy, but he was unorthodox. He played the guitar like nobody had met before.
Yeah.
He played the guitar like he was painting a picture. And that was it. He brought his drummer in, Curly Smith.
Yeah.
Flea from the Chili Peppers came down and played bass at one run through just to see what it was like. Because the Chili Peppers were already together, I think.
Yeah.
Then I sent for my bass player in New York, Donny Nossoff, and we had a band. And me and Gary were writing songs hand over fist. So it was like, I didn't go home for like 4 months.
Yeah.
It was like we just started the record.
I researched him a little bit. I mean, he was tapped to replace Stevie Ray Vaughan, when Vaughan left his original band to form, his band.
Well,
Oh man,
yeah. I mean, just
hell of a player.
Just a lot of talent in the room.
Yeah.
I think that's what I've always held out for that. I mean, sometimes the talent's got the different vision, and it only goes so far, and then it falls apart.
Yeah.
But that was True Blue. That was like, we really were a force.
Yeah.
We could have been a major band, that band, if we had stuck together. But Gary wanted to go back to his solo career after the album.
Yeah.
And that was a mistake. Because if we'd have gone out with that band, we'd have annihilated everybody in annihilation distance. It was powerful, but egos are egos, and we stayed friends, and we've been friends ever since. But I think that was a mistake for everybody.
The other tune I've got to talk about, I mean, obviously I got a couple questions for you on Missing You. The other tune that I always loved off of No Breaks was Tears. And of course, it appealed to me because Vinnie Vincent co-wrote that.
Yeah.
I've heard his version. I know Peter Criss cut it. I'm not trying to blow smoke up your butt. I think you did the definitive version of it.
Well, without even saying, without hearing the other versions, I haven't heard the other version. That I must have heard the demo.
Yeah.
But both me and Gary wouldn't imitate anything. Yeah. And the thing at the end, cry you a river tonight, I'm gonna cry for you. Yeah. I just threw that in. We did a complete different arrangement. The thing about working that quickly, hitting the ground running, is that you have songs that you're writing. I had 2 songs I had Restless Heart that I'd written for the Babies, but they laughed at me because it was country. And I had Dreamtime that I'd written with Ivan Kroll in New York City. So I had two songs to kick us off. Then me and Gary wrote Saturday Night, and the whole band jammed, you know, For Your Love or whatever. But we needed a couple of songs just to balance the seesaw. So we just rewrote Tears. But I have to say, every time we do that live, and we play it every night because it's such a good song and he's such a good writer. But when it comes to Of All the Girls I've Had At My Knees, You're the Only One That Brings Me to These Tears, I have to stop myself from laughing every single time I sing that line. Of all the girls I've had at my knees. Yeah, it's just an edgy song.
How did you discover it?
Oh man, Gary Gersh. Gary
Okay.
Gersh. I said, Gary, well, you know, we're in the studio now. We're writing songs and bringing them in. Some of them are working. We kicked out, you know, and David Thorne is behind the board, brilliant guy. And I remember Gary coming in and playing it to us, saying, "What do you think of this?" And there was none of that thing like, I didn't write it, I'm not singing it.
Yeah.
It was like you hear a song that you want to sing, you know. It's like Rod Stewart, you know, it's like you hear a song, you think that's as good as anything I'm going to do. Let me sing it. It's fucking great, you know. And tears and the damage they do, you know, it's you're breaking my heart with those tears. It's just it's a fantastically well-written song, but we did a number on it. I think we threw in a very, very large view of the song and made it more. But you know, yeah, all power to Vinny. Yeah.
You know, it's funny you saying that line. To me, that was the line where you really, your voice and the way you sang it just made it happen. Was you're breaking my heart with these tears, you know?
Yeah.
The way you sang it, it used to just slay me every time.
Well, I don't know. I can't remember what he did with that line. He might have sang the same melody. I tend to, when I'm singing, I don't sing the same melody twice ever. I mean, you're in a different room, different vibe, different mic, different audience. And I go at it, I close my eyes for a second and I'm somewhere else and I start singing. The lyric might stay the same, mostly, but I always sing something off the top of my head. So I don't know what I did in that song. I know that I rewrote the end for the coda. Cry you a river tonight. I'm going to cry for you, die for you tonight. But you know, the blueprint's there for sure. It's a beautiful thing.
Now, with Missing You, you know, it's sort of been well documented that this was a song that came in at the end of the album, you know, sort of just out of the cosmos almost. Yeah. And that you went in and threatened the record company if they didn't allow you to do it and give you some money to do it, you were going to walk out.
Well, you know, that's a nice way of putting it. I mean, or a bad way of putting it. I knew it was number one. Yeah. You know, it's okay dicking about like, you know, this is a good song, let's try this. But I knew it, and everybody in the band knew it. David Thorner, the engineer mixer, he knew it. Everybody knew it. And it's just that I think with the record company, you say, I've got a hit. And then somebody goes like, yeah, great, drop it off tomorrow, you know. I said, no, this is it. And there was obviously a kind of, you know, it's what happens with when you have an office. People are not listening. They have, you know, they got things to do. And I did go in and I said, I want $5,000. And it's going to cost $5,000 to cut it. It's not a lot. Give me the fucking money. This is it, you know. And there was probably a 48-hour kind of what's going on with John, you know. And then the check arrived. It was like as soon as anybody heard that song, it was over. You know, the moment I finished writing the demo, it was like I knew it was bigger than being number one. It was a career-making song. Yeah. And there is a difference. You can be number one and you can be gone 2 weeks later and it's you're a one-hit wonder. I'd come from the Babies, who'd had some pretty big songs, and I'd come from a solo album with Change on it. Yeah. And everybody knew who I was. And I knew if Missing You was everything I thought it was, I wouldn't be running uphill anymore. I'd be established in a bigger world. But beyond that, you're trying to get the message. You know, with the Babies, you'd write a song and and kind of hope he didn't get run over before it came out. It was so important to make contact with people and deliver the message. But with Missing You, it was completely undeniable. It was of the time, and it was also written for the ages. It wasn't arena rock.
Yeah.
It didn't sound like anybody else. The melody was quite deep and wide and bluesy, but the images were like Glenn Campbell. There was like Wichita Lineman in there.
Yeah.
It was a really well written song, you know.
The quote that I read, and I hope that I'm quoting you right on this, was when that moment came, you said all your life led to that moment as a
Yeah,
songwriter for you.
yeah, yeah.
That's a powerful statement.
But
You
it
know?
was.
Yeah.
It was sung over somebody else's chord changes.
Mm.
And so I heard it in the studio and said, let me have a go at that. And they put the headphones on me, or this guy that I was writing with, in his spare room. They played the song through once. I kind of thought they were recording it. They weren't. And I went in the second time. And, you know, not being home for 4 or 5 months when you're married. I was married at the time.
Yeah.
And I was worn out. I really was. I was exhausted. And it had been a lot to deal with. And I think it all came out in that, like, just word association. I used Every Time I Think of You to start me off.
Mm.
And then I jumped in. I'm good at that.
Yeah.
And it was a baby song. Every time I think of you, I always,
Right.
but I sang that line. And then I made up the entire first verse, bridge, and chorus without stopping. It came out of nowhere. Yeah, as good songs often do.
Right.
And you can take credit for it, or you can say you're just a conduit, as Keith Richards says.
Right.
But I got right through to the end of the chorus, you know, and I was winded. It hurt. I couldn't speak.
Yeah.
You know, I welled up. It was everything I'd tried to say about the distance between me and everything else. It was a masculine take on denial.
Yeah.
And it was also from the heart. So, you know, and I didn't know I was going to sing I Ain't Missing You at All.
Yeah.
I really didn't know I was going to sing that till I sang it.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
This song, though, also brought you stardom, but it's sort of a double-edged sword. You no longer could be so much anonymous. Also, you know, it just jetted you into the next stratosphere. You no longer could go down to the corner pub for a beer, without everybody recognizing you.
Yeah.
But it also gave you sort of a carte blanche in the music business to do what you're doing now with this, acoustic set.
Well, I think, honestly, I think for me personally, once you've had a number one, you've paid those dues, and you should be allowed, and you have to take your freedom. I mean, you look back at something like Fast Car by Tracy Chapman, which is an elegant, beautiful song of the real world, and the real world for a lot of people who are disenfranchised and stuck in a life they can't get out of. And it goes to number one, and it's a career-making piece of music. She doesn't have to go away and write Fast Car again.
Right.
It's those days are gone. Hopefully, it's like, I don't want another number one single. I've been there, done it. I earned it. It was done honestly. I slogged my way for 7 years through every kind of shit you can imagine with the Babies and this first solo album, and made a lot of I really gave it everything I had, and suddenly I had it. And it was nice to have it, and I was very grateful. It never was wasted on me. I was very proud of it, and the people who played on it. And I was proud of myself, and my family were proud of me. And it was like, oh, yeah, man, thanks. And then I wanted to go back and make a country record. I didn't understand how you get on this sort of wheel where you got to make a hit single every 6 months or whatever, or you're done. I never followed those kind of artists. And I think I actively stepped back. I actively just didn't accept it. I mean, there's a choice there. You take it or you leave it. I mean, I hope that I was sweet and kind to all the people that put me there, and thank you. I don't think I ever had my nose in the air or was too cool for the room. I was just a working class guy that was an artist. and I couldn't respond and relate to that kind of she fair weather friends life at 90, kind of like, I just couldn't do it. It just wasn't me. So I carved my own path, and yeah, you're right. It's allowed me to be making Wooden Heart 3 CD set at this age, at this end of my career. It's all down to missing you, really, but I earned it, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, I understand you've also got a documentary coming out,
Oh
The Hard
man,
Way.
yeah. I mean, in lockdown, I had a friend of mine who lived in Portland that used to work at Epic Records, Scott Wright. And there were some riots in Portland. And I've always been a friend of Scott's. I went to his wedding in New Orleans and years ago. And I thought I'd ring him up, see if his house had been burnt down. You know, I just thought I'd say hello. And I rang him up and he said, man, your life, somebody should make a movie. And I said, yeah, maybe they should, you know. And he went away and got backing. He'd made a movie about the wine business. He owns a vineyard. He won some sort of award. And he came back with major backing, like a huge budget. And the next thing I know, I'm in the studio and there's a 2-camera crew filming me singing and mixing. And then I'm by a swimming pool being shot, 2 cameras, major crew, makeup. And it's like, Jesus Christ, you know. And then they come over to my place where I live, my condo in Santa Monica, me and my girlfriend, you know, doing the housework and singing songs. And they film me basically going to the bathroom, you know. And I'm very nervous about watching it. The guy, Scott, just emailed me from Paris. He's moved to Paris. And he says, I'm going to send you the first 10 minutes of the movie. And for the first time since it's been done, it's finished now, I said, okay. I'm very nervous about seeing myself and my life. I'm sure that they haven't done anything that's like, but I'm not about kiss and tell. I'm not. I tried to protect all the women, my ex-wife that I've loved in my life. I didn't want to discuss. I didn't want to be one of those guys that sleeps with somebody and then tells, you know, the inside scoop of what it's like to be in bed with somebody. You know, it's like I couldn't do that. Kiss and tell.
Prefer to be a gentleman instead of a cad, you know?
Yes. I think, that's kind of low rent. You know, I mean, that's what I'm saying about show business and celebrity. Those people do that. Fuck them. I'm not doing that. And but I did admit to all the drugs and the hard life and the, you know, living well, some sex, you know. I mean, the innocent will remain unnamed, but I tried to do it as a gentleman, yeah. But I also tried to tell the truth and not build myself up. I tried to show as much of myself that was true as I could.
Touch briefly, John, on your artwork as well. You continue to do art. You've always done work. Talk a little bit about what you're doing now.
Well, I painting. The lockdown thing drove me back to painting, and I've always painted, and for a long time I've been doing these sort of caricatures of me that I used to just draw on people's albums. If they were waiting outside a gig, I would do this caricature as a little something for waiting outside, you know. And then people were calling me up asking me to do artwork for something, or could they get one of those cartoons on their albums? And so I did a whole bunch of them, put them up on the johnwaiteworldwide.com, and they all sold out. Wow. So I did another 50 or whatever, and they all sold out. And then I went back to painting other things, and then that sold out. So I was doing these selfie things and then doing like almost political cartoon sketches, portraits. I did Patti Smith, Eric Satie, Artaud, the French poet. I mean, I've done all sorts of different things. But if you want some original artwork, yeah. And I suppose when I walk away from the music business, I picture myself in a country cottage somewhere in Europe with a paintbrush and a gin and tonic and a cigar and
and painting.
Yeah, ooh, and like Winston Churchill, you know, just painting landscapes or something. But I think you got to be full time on painting. You don't really cross the line. So I'm looking forward to that. When I finally hang up my Spurs, excellent. I'm gonna really go back to painting full time.
Well, you're not hanging up your Spurs you set. Let's touch briefly on some live dates you got coming out this
Oh
Saturday.
yeah,
You're at Fort
we
Lauderdale,
we
Sunday, Clearwater.
yeah, we
Pat
leave
Benatar,
on
Neil
Friday.
Giraldo.
Yeah, it's with Neil and Patty. And Neil comes out and plays the last song with us. We do Whole Lot of Love, and he comes out and kills the shit out of it. It's great, But Patty and him are really great people, and they're really warm, genuine, sweet people. And it's just been just great to see him again and get to know each other again and play. But the whole crew is cool. Everybody on that tour is happy. They're glad to be there.
Cool. John, this has been an amazing conversation. As a longtime Babies, John Waite, Bad English, everything fan, I couldn't wait to do this interview with you. So I
really enjoyed it. I mean, I usually don't spend this much time talking on such a intimate level, but I think I appreciate everything you said about coming from a small town and your Elvis Presley album and my Marty Robbins album. I got it. And, thanks for the good questions. And I rambled, but thanks.
No, it was fine. Is there anything that we didn't talk about or touch on that you wanted to before we wind things up here?
No, I think we touched on the touring, the live album. I mean the Wooden Heart trilogy. That's it, really. That's my life right now.
Awesome. I tell you what, I usually end with a couple of silly questions. I'm gonna keep this down to just two. Okay.
Okay. All
right. If you could go back in time and eat one of your mom's home cooked meals from your childhood, what would you prepare?
Oh man, my mom's a brilliant cook. She's 96 and she still cooks. But Sunday dinner, she used to make a really cracking Sunday dinner: roast beef, Yorkshire pudding, peas, turnips, roast potatoes. Really just a great cook. We have a thing in England called Pancake Tuesday, where everybody in Britain makes pancakes. It's like, but they're English pancakes. They're different from the American ones. And you put sugar on top, and then you squeeze a lemon over that, and you roll it up. And me and my brother used to sit in the kitchen, and she'd make about a dozen of them, and we'd wolf them down. But anything my mother made was just great. She cooked me a meal about 6 weeks ago, and it was great.
That's awesome. Excuse me, I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. They've already made the documentary. If they were to make a biopic of your life, and we usually have fun with this one, if they were to make a biopic of your life, what actor would you choose to play you? And it's your movie, your life. You can pick anybody.
Oh, Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp?
Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
I really would. I think he has that sort of cavalier, bonhomie kind of fuck it kind of attitude, and a lot of his work has been brilliant. But I think he's an interesting guy, and I think he's got a lot of soul, and I hope that he would. I think he would get it. I think Johnny Depp, if he's making a movie, I usually just go and watch it anyway. Because cool. The Libertine was really fantastic. Yeah. There's some moments in that when he hits this sort of witcherly kind of restoration play kind of language from London. There's like one scene where he absolutely gets it, and he doesn't do it for the rest of the movie. It's like, hey, get the fucking drinks in, will you? It's like, and it's perfect. I think Johnny's a genius in his own way. Yeah.
Very cool. JohnWaiteWorldwide.com is the website. You can keep track of the live dates, the artwork. Wooden Heart Acoustic Anthology 1 through 3 is out now. You can check that out as well. John Waite here for Let's Discuss with Lance Hall. I have enjoyed every moment of this, John.
I've really had a nice time, Lance. It was really good talking to you. Yeah, I really appreciate the homework you did. It made it authentic,
Thank you very much. Best of luck out on the road. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you. God bless you. See you soon.
Bye-bye.